All right, so some news for today. This is exciting. Apparently, Seattle has hired a street czar, and I found a couple of articles I wanted to share with you just to discuss this. Apparently, a person by the name of Andre Taylor was hired for upwards of $150,000 potentially to be the street czar, to talk sense between the community that is essentially taking over an imperialistic attempt at taking over a few blocks in Seattle and the Chaz Chop area, and then communicating with the city basically to come to terms or whatever. Anyway, so we're gonna get into this. It's kind of crazy. This guy has quite the past, and it's just so funny to see like how stupid Seattle is as a city and a governing body over their constituents. So the first story is titled "Price Tag for New City Contract with Seattle Street Czar Draws Scrutiny." So this is the person that was hired as the street czar of Chop. So you can't make this up. It goes on, it starts, Seattle. The city of Seattle has entered into a contract with Andre Taylor, a high-profile civic activist who will become the city's first street czar, a role that has come under fire from some in the community. Wow, how grandiose. I'm a street czar. It continues. Under the terms of the year-long contract, the city will pay Taylor and his group, called Not This Time, $150,000 to provide expertise and support services in de-escalation, community engagement, and alternatives to policing. Gee, I wonder where that $150,000 is coming from. Taxpayers, anyone? Could you imagine your tax money going to this guy being called a street czar with his group called Not This Time, getting paid over six figures for an annual contract to basically talk between these anarchist I would go as far as saying terrorists, because they took over an area, they created borders, they destroyed businesses, and there's been, murders that have occurred there already. But, we'll just leave that aside for now and just recognize it as a bunch of little babies throwing a temper tantrum over nothing. And you're going to pay them $150,000 because they're experts? We'll get into that. The expertise factor. It continues. Taylor said the role will benefit the city and its outreach efforts to the community. No, I think it'll benefit Taylor's pockets. $150,000 from taxpayer money to be a street czar? Basically, you're just gonna walk around the area in your fancy getup. You'll see how this guy dresses, and basically just talk to people all day in an area that they took over, and basically just tell them, yeah, what do you guys want? This is ridiculous. A street czar is a person who has a particular genius in a particular area, Taylor told Como News on Tuesday. I know the term street czar is quite provocative. So you have a particular genius in a particular area. What are you a genius on? What makes you an expert, PhD level candidate in a particular area? What is that area? Talking to people on the street about not destroying a part of a city? Come on, what? Elaborate, please. Taylor said he devised the title by following a practice by former President Barack Obama of designating czars to handle a variety of areas of interest while he was in the White House. This should be a prominent position because it could help quell some of the incidents that are going on between community and cities, said Taylor, who came to prominence after his brother, Che Taylor, was shot and killed by Seattle Police Department officers in Wedgwood in 2016. 2 years later, Andre Taylor made a name for himself in Seattle by advocating for I-940, a police reform initiative that was ultimately approved by state voters in 2018. That measure was designed to provide more accountability for law enforcement officers accused of fatal officer-involved shootings. During the summer's Capitol Hill-occupied protest demonstrations, Taylor drew fire from many protesters who accused him of being an agent for city leaders and police. Many of the CHOP protesters said Taylor did not speak for them. I mean, could you blame them? You got a bunch of, poor, broke people or a bunch of rich college students basically coming together, complaining about a statistical anomaly that we've proven time and time again to not be an issue, which is the police fatality shooting issues. And then And then you think they're not going to get mad at you for exploiting their cause to make 150 grand just all quick off of taxpayers? I mean, of course you're going to get crap. You're going to get crap from everyone. You're a street czar, a genius in talking to people that have taken over blocks of a city. I mean, and you get paid 6 figures for that. That's insane. He said he was at the scene to de-escalate the violence after Lorenzo Anderson was killed nearby. He's like, yeah, I'll de-escalate the issue. You just got to pay me 6 figures to come in here and de-escalate. Did you de-escalate though? I mean, I'm pretty sure CHOP is still a thing, right? Don't people still kind of have, a little bit of reign over that area? I guess de-escalating isn't ending. I'll just come in here and tell people to calm down. You're just gonna pay me 6 figures to do so. The contract was signed by a representative from the city's Department of Neighborhoods on June 22nd as the CHOP demonstrations were still unfolding. Taylor didn't sign the contract, however, until July 27th. Taylor says his skill comes from knowing the streets, who to talk to when tensions are rising, and how to de-escalate those raw emotions. Here we go. Here's his justification. Someone can't put a price tag on going into community meetings and having sit-downs with gang members who won't sit down with anybody else, he said. Saying the same about pimps and prostitutes who aren't likely to go to Seattle City Hall for a meeting, the police brass. So basically, you're saying, oh, I have a way into talking to people that are destroying our cities and wreaking havoc and causing violence in our communities and poisoning them with, illegal narcotic sales. So that's the person we want to hire to go talk to them when you could just go arrest those people and get them off the street and take them out of this. What? You're negotiating with these people? You got to be kidding me. Violent members of the community, felons of the community. These are the people that you're going to pay taxpayer money to talk to when they should just simply be arrested. Taylor's group has had previous contracts with the city. In 2019, the city agreed to pay, not this time, $100,000 to sponsor a speaker series that was called Conversations with the Streets. So he already made 100 grand. He already made 100 grand off of the city. So he's like, oh, here's another opportunity. An opportunity has arisen, so why not just take advantage of it? He says, no one raised any questions about the 100 grand that the city gave us for Conversations with the Streets, he said, and we are kind of bewildered that people are now raising an issue about 150,000 for a de-escalation that we've been doing since my brother Che Taylor was killed. It's amazing to me, and this is a non-starter and non-issue. I mean, think about it. These people are not getting paid 150 grand to sit around and smoke weed all day, but you're getting 150 grand to walk around and just basically do whatever with them. I don't know if you're getting high with them, but you're basically just walking around talking to them. So they're trying to have a conversation. They have a cause that they believe in. They're trying to make change, and you're just the one getting paid to participate. They're not getting paid. I think a bunch of people that are struggling because they have no work, since obviously they're out at CHOP all day, can't possibly be working. I think I'd be upset too if you're getting paid by the city 150 grand to do what I'm doing. Can you talk about inequality at its finest? Anyways, so enough of this. This is just a silly thing altogether. But I found this gem afterwards. I was like, okay, who's this Andre Taylor guy? Well, guess what? He used to go by the name Gorgeous Dre. Oh yes, Gorgeous Dre was a pimp. Guess what? This guy was a pimp. An actual pimp that had hookers that he oversaw, impregnated, and I'm sure beat. All right, so check this out. This is titled Seattle City Government Hires Ex-Pimp to be Street Czar with $150,000 payment. So you find a pimp. Okay, well now it makes sense why you're able to go to gang people and hookers and prostitutes and have conversations with them because you were their leader at one point. Yep, this is the person. You pimp the system. You sure pimp the taxpayers too. You got 150 grand out of them. Isn't that something? Oh, and before you already got 100,000. So you got $250,000 that you pimped out of the city. I mean, can't make this stuff up. Look at this. Andre Taylor is a thug who ran girls for cash, impregnated his call girls, and can now add being contacted by the government to his resume. I'm sure that's supposed to be being contracted, but it says contacted. When asked why the city was paying an ex-pimp to run the streets of Seattle, Sam Reed, a spokesman for the Department of Neighborhoods, claimed it was a means to build a partnership with organizations representing the black community. Really? So in the black community, you couldn't find someone better than a pimp? Really? Someone that exploited women? And I mean, come on, really? There's more. There are really amazing people in these communities that are not doing this type of stuff that could better represent these people. The entire movement of BLM and CHOP and all of them, all that entire group of rich white college kids, all the way down to apparently convicted felons and whoever falls in between. So that group of people could be better represented and maybe have the money go to a more qualified candidate than an ex-pimp. I mean, come on now. There's definitely a lot better people to choose from in these communities. Much better people. And if you want to go with black people, there are definitely black people of higher caliber that have way more credentials, that are way more qualified, way more sophisticated, way more just everything that is not this guy. The exact opposite. Much better shining lights of hope inside of these communities. And it's definitely not this guy. He says, "You ain't strong enough to stop whatever I'm doing," Taylor said in a webcast, which you can go see. It's basically him sitting down in his pimp uniform, just talking for almost an hour about all this stuff, where he goes into detail and explains how he was in a movie about pimps and all this stuff. So basically, it's just, he goes on to admit that he was a pimp. He then goes on to discuss how, while working as a pimp, he impregnated some of the women who he sold out on the streets. Oh, great. He said, "We decided to be like the mafia." In 1999, Taylor was featured in the documentary American Pimp, which examined the pimping subculture in America. "We decided we were going to be in the subculture like the mafia, whether you like it or not. It wasn't about you. We knew you considered us the waste of the world from the beginning," Taylor said. But could you imagine why? Why is it a bad thing? Why is it considered immoral? Why are you looked down upon for doing these things? You know, I mean, come on, there's reasons for it. He became a prominent Seattle figure after his brother, a convicted rapist, robber, and drug dealer, was shot and killed by police while reaching for a handgun. Oh, well, the other news article left that part out when they referenced his brother being shot by police. But it's okay, because he got paid $100,000 for this. This isn't the first time the city has paid Taylor either. In 2019, he and his group were paid $100,000 to host an event called Conversations with the Street. Isn't that crazy? So this guy got paid $150,000 to be the street czar of a hostile takeover in Seattle that created CHOP, and he was paid $100,000 after, I didn't look into the story, so I can't confirm this, but I'm assuming based on all the other evidence I've seen from police shootings that chances are this person probably was a ex-felon who committed atrocious acts like raping and robbery and probably had a handgun, and it probably occurred because that's what happens most of the time. Got paid $100,000 for that. So we're talking $250,000 of taxpayer money is paid out to this guy, to this pimp dude, to basically walk around and just talk in the streets. So if you actually go to the video in the first one, it kind of shows you a little bit about his activities. So let's just watch this a little bit and we'll wrap it up. But I think it's insane that this ex-pimp is basically pimped out $250,000 from taxpayers.
He is now on the city payroll. He's been hired as a so-called street czar, theoretically to help de-escalate tensions between police and protesters.
But not everyone thinks Andre Taylor is the right person for the job, and there are also questions about his six-figure contract.
We have team coverage tonight, including community reaction, but we start with Matt Markovich with some details about this hire. Matt?
Yeah, this is a first for Seattle, a street czar, a position that Andre Taylor made up, and he says the mayor agreed. It's a $150,000 one-year contract.
Holy moly! Wow, I need to get on this game. This is something. Anyways, yeah, so you saw he was out there were people twerking around him. He was just talking to the community, and he gets paid six figures from taxpayers to do so. I think it's ridiculous. These people are nuts. These should be voted out of office for making these kinds of decisions and allowing this crap to happen. This person's making more than the police officers that are there protecting everyone. It's insane, really. I don't know. That's all I have to say on this. I think it's nuts. Tell me what you think in the comments below if you think this is cool or not. I really want to get your opinions on this. And anyways, until next time, God bless.